Okay guys, I read so many good books this month. I cannot wait to share them with you. Welcome everybody, I am Jennifer and this is The Rookie Reader. In today's video, I'm going to share the 8 books that I read in February with you. And I'm going to share them in order from the books that had the highest number of stars to the books that had the lowest number of stars. Okay, the first 5-star book that I read this month was Daisy Jones and the Sixth by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I loved this book so much. Taylor Jenkins Reid is becoming one of my favorite authors. Everything that I've read by her so far, I've just loved. So she's awesome. But this is a historical fiction, and it's about this band in the late 70s called Daisy Jones and the Six. And what happened was this band was a very successful band in the 70s, and then all of a sudden they just stopped making music and nobody knew why. Like nobody knew what happened, what went wrong. So the book is in an interview format, and by the way, I listened to the audio version of this book and it was awesome because there was a different voice actor for each character, and it's told in a like interview kind of format. So somebody's interviewing them and then you hear their story unfold through their interviews. So you get you actually get a unique voice for each character. So through these interviews, we do learn why they broke up, like what the story was, what happened. It's just a really fun book. And it's actually also a new show on Amazon Prime. And I was so excited. I finished the book and then I'm like, oh, I want to see if they're going to make this into a movie or something. So I looked it up and it said that it was coming out as a show on Amazon Prime. Like after I read it like a week or so later, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like perfect timing. So I'm currently watching the show and they're only releasing 1 episode a week. So I haven't seen, the whole series yet, but what I've seen so far from the series is it's awesome. I love when they make shows when they make books into shows versus making books into movies, because a movie only has, it's a like small chunk of time that you can fit in a lot of information, where with the TV show you can really dig into the story and share everything in the story. So I'm really enjoying the show. If you have read the book and haven't seen the show, I would highly recommend you check it out. I think you will like it too. And the main character, Daisy Jones, she is played by, oh gosh darn it, I'm forgetting her name. Keough is her last name, but she is Elvis Presley's granddaughter. So I thought that was, like, as I was watching the show, looking at her face, I kept thinking, gosh, she really looks like a young Marie Presley. And it turns out, yeah, it's Marie Presley's daughter. So I'm loving the show. And I also loved the book. So 5 stars. The next 5-star book I read is called Confessions. Now this is a Japanese book that was written by Kane Minato originally, and then the version I read was it's a translated version by Steven Snyder. So this is a mystery thriller set in Japan, and there is this teacher, and it starts with her like meeting with her students on the very last day of school, and she lets them know this is going to be her last day of teaching ever, that she is leaving the teaching field and she's moving on. And the reason why is because her 4-year-old daughter had recently been murdered, and she tells the class she knows that it was 2 of them who murdered her daughter. So the rest of the book kind of unfolds this mystery thriller about what happened to her daughter, how she's getting revenge for her daughter's murder. On Goodreads, it's actually listed both under horror and mystery thriller, so it totally makes sense. I would agree with that as well. It was so good. It's kind of like, I kept thinking like, oh, this is really like dark and twisted and I shouldn't be liking this book, but I really liked it. I found it highly entertaining. Not funny in any way, but just really good, a really good read. Okay, the next book I read was The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, and this book was actually recommended to me by a few of my viewers from last month's video where I talked about The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna and how much I enjoyed that book, and that was the first time I had read a book by her. And so this book was recommended to me, and I found out that it won Best Historical Fiction in 2015 on the Goodreads Choice Awards. So this book also got 5 stars from me. It is historical fiction, and it takes place in Nazi-occupied France in the late 30s, early 40s. It tells the story of 2 sisters at that time who live very different lives. One of them is in Paris and one of them is out in the country, but being occupied by the Nazis during this time, it didn't really matter where you were. Life wasn't good. Life wasn't comfortable. Life wasn't nice. So they both had very different lives, but also had very difficult lives based on their circumstances. And it was just such a cool way to see how strong women are and how strong women have been throughout history, because this book is actually based on real women from World War II and the things that they did. And I really, really enjoyed this book. I gave it 5 stars. When I went on to Goodreads to do my review, I checked out a few other people's reviews, and it got low ratings from some people, which really surprised me, so I just read them because I was curious. And their problem with the book was they felt like the author had exaggerated too much about what life was like during this time in occupied France. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if it was exaggerated. It was pretty horrible, what I read in the book. But I imagine that real life was at that time was also very horrible. So I'm giving it 5 stars. One of the best books I've ever read. Okay, so I had one book that was a 4.5 stars, and it is called Finley Donovan is Killing It. So this is actually a series now, and this was the first book in the series, and this is the only one I've read so far. It's by Ellie Cusimano, and I didn't give it 5 stars. I really enjoyed this book, but it wasn't like quite a 5-star read for me. Like 5 stars are the ones like that I'm still going to be thinking about 10, 20 years from now. And this wasn't that, but it was definitely very good. It's a mystery thriller, which is my favorite kind of book. And it was also, maybe it was like also could be considered like a cozy mystery because it wasn't that heavy. Like, even though the content is kind of heavy, it wasn't a heavy book. It wasn't that it was funny, but it was quite ridiculous. Okay, so here's like the plot. Here's the main plot. So Finley Donovan is a writer, and she is meeting with her editor. I think she's meeting with her editor at a Panera Bread. And while she's meeting with her editor, she is discussing the plot to her latest book, which involves a hitman. And somebody in the restaurant overhears them talking and mistakes the conversation as if that Finley's talking about herself as a hitman. And this person wants to hire her to murder her husband. So like I said, the premise isn't funny, but the way it's executed is just so ridiculous. I mean, isn't that kind of a ridiculous setup to begin with? But it's also done so well. Finley kept getting herself into these situations, and I kept feeling like, oh my God, how is she gonna get out of this situation? Like, this is terrible. And then she would, like, over and over again. When I finished the book, I didn't really have the urge to like immediately move on and read the next one in the series, but I really enjoyed this one for what it was. Okay, next up is a 4-star book called Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. This is the first Sally Rooney book that I've read. I was going to start with Normal People, but after watching a few book reviews about her books, it seemed that a few people thought that like Conversations with Friends is just like Normal People, but better. It's kind of the idea that I got. So I thought instead of starting with Normal People, I'll start with Conversations with Friends. So I read that, and it's actually a TV series. I don't know when they made this TV series, but it is on Hulu. So if you enjoy like watching things after you read them, I would highly recommend that you check out this TV show, because just like so far Daisy Jones and the Six, the TV show is following along with the book so well. Like it's perfect. Like the characters are just how I imagine them. They're including all the important details from the book because they have the time to do that in a series. So I enjoyed the series just as much as I enjoyed the book, and I enjoyed this book. So this book is mostly about these 2 college friends who become friends with an older couple. And when I say older, not that much older, like it's just older than them. Like they're younger than me. Like this couple's in their 30s, I'm in my 40s. So it's a younger couple to me, but older to college students. So these two college students are kind of taken under the wing of this couple, this married couple. The wife is a writer, the husband is an actor, and one of the college students, she is an aspiring writer. So they kind of like take them under their wing and just go and do stuff with them. This takes place in Ireland, so they kind of just like invite them to parties and stuff like that, and they become friends. And one of the college girls starts having an affair with the husband, and then it just goes from there. But the thing is it's not like, this story wasn't crazy. It just was, even though like there's an affair that's happening, it seemed very kind of low key, very real life. Like I kept thinking, like I felt like this was something that could possibly happen in real life. It wasn't so crazy and ridiculous compared to some of the things that I read. But I enjoyed that. I enjoyed reading about like real people. I liked it. So if you are okay with just good writing, interesting characters, and not like a strong plot, this book was a good book. Okay, and then after all of that crazy heavy stuff, I wanted something just fun and lighthearted. So I found this book called The Hotel Nantucket by Ellen Hilderbrand, and I found out she has actually written many books. I have not read them. This is the first book I've read by her, but I want to check out more of her books. This book was just so much fun. It was so lighthearted. So what it is, it's a story of this hotel, the Hotel Nantucket. It was originally built and like had its heyday in the 1920s, and then there was a fire, and one of the maids for the hotel was killed in the fire. And then I think they did some repairs over time, but it never again became this grand hotel that it once was. So what's happening at this point in the story is the hotel has been purchased by an eccentric millionaire that lives somewhere else. I forgot what country he lives in. I want to say, I could be wrong, maybe Australia, but not the United States. Maybe it was Britain. I can't remember, I'm sorry. But this man buys it, refurbishes it, and then hires this cast of characters. And so this story is really about this whole cast of characters. In this first summer that this hotel is open, they all want it to be successful. They're all working hard to make it successful. And then they all have their own little storylines happening simultaneously to this big storyline of opening up this hotel. So one of the characters in the book, or my favorite character in the book, is Grace, and she was the maid that was killed in the fire. And she's a nice ghost. She's a kind ghost. Like she messes with people, but not on a cruel level, not on a horror level, on a she's trying to do good. She's just trying to do good things. And she also wants the hotel to be successful, and she wants good things to happen to this cast of characters that's living at the hotel, living or working at the hotel. And it's just a really good, feel-good, fun book. And it actually won an award. Oh no, it was nominated, sorry. It was nominated for Best Fiction of 2022 on the Goodreads Choice Awards. So I'm not the only one that thinks it's really good. And one of the things I really liked about this book is the way the author describes the food, the music, the drinks, the hotel. Like she just does a great job describing everything. And there's a whole like Nantucket feeling that even though I've never been to Nantucket, I kind of feel like I have now based on the way that she describes it. And the author actually lives in Nantucket now. I don't know if she's always lived there, but she's living in Nantucket now. So that was a really fun book. If you want a fun read, I would highly recommend that one. Okay, and then my last two books were 3.5 stars. And the first one, this book was so good, you guys. The reason why I gave it 3.5. Okay, so first of all, let me tell you the name of the book. The book is The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. And this is one of those TikTok made me read it kind of situations. I actually don't ever go on TikTok, but my husband does. And he brought me his phone, and he said, hey, have you seen this series of TikToks by this author? So then he showed me the series. Okay guys, so my camera died. There's plenty of battery, but it overheats. It's a good quality camera, but I can't use it for very long before it gives out on me. I think the reflection's really bad. Is that better? Should I take off my glasses? Okay, I want to get this finished. I've been wanting to make this video for weeks now. I lost my voice last week when I was going to film, and it seems like a whole nother week has gone by and I hadn't filmed yet, so let's just get it done. Okay, so we were talking about the last 2 books that I read, the first one being A Perfect Marriage. I don't know where the video cut out, so I believe, yes, I was talking about TikTok. Okay, so this author went on TikTok and just shared this email that she got from a person who read her book. And okay, so the premise of the story, first of all, you need to know this before I can tell you about the TikTok. So the premise of the book is there's this married couple, I don't know I forgot what the husband does, but the wife is a lawyer. He's having an affair, and his mistress is found murdered in the bed of their vacation home. So somehow, for some reason, she is the only lawyer that can take on the case and help her husband if she chooses to do that. And she does. She chooses to do that. So the person who complained to the author, he is a lawyer, and he was just like, this is absolutely ridiculous. This could never happen in real life. And I think he's right. I think it was ridiculous. So like, while I wanted to give this book more than 3.5 stars, I had to do the 3.5 because even though I thoroughly enjoyed it, I agree with that lawyer, and just that I had a problem suspending, what's that called? You're supposed to have suspension of disbelief. You're supposed to be able to have a suspension of disbelief when you're watching a movie or reading a book. Like, even though you know this could never happen in real life, you just kind of go with it. Well, I struggled with that a little bit for this one. For this book, I just kept going back to there's no way that could happen in real life. But it was still an amazing book. It was definitely one of those kind of books that I picked it up and I could not put it down. I just wanted to keep reading it and reading it and reading it. So 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. As long as you can get past the craziness of there's no way that this could happen in real life, I think you would enjoy it as well. Okay, and then finally, the last book I read, which was also 3.5 stars, is called The Dutch House. And actually, this one I listened to on audio, and Tom Hanks was the narrator. So I love Tom Hanks. Just about anything he ever does, I love. So just having him narrate it was oh, I like it just because he's narrating it, but it was also a really good story. The reason why I gave it 3.5 stars is I felt like it didn't really have a plot necessarily. So it starts out, you're following this brother and this sister, and they live in this beautiful house called the Dutch House. And you start with them in childhood and kind of follow them through really basically their whole lives. And sometimes they're living in the house and sometimes they're not, depending on what's going on and what's happening. But it's about their love for their family, their love for the house. And like I said, there's not really a strong plot, which is why I gave it 3.5 stars. But it's still really well written. I loved Tom Hanks as the narrator. And it actually won an award. Oh no, it was a nominee, sorry. It was nominated for Best Historical Fiction in 2019. So even though it doesn't really have a plot and the story kind of meanders, it's still interesting. Following this family, following this brother and this sister, and just seeing what happens throughout their life. It's just interesting. Okay guys, so that is it for my February wrap up. I hope you will come back and join me again next month. Bye everyone!